Zeman started here his visit. It was tragedy, dead forest. There was a professor from Brno. He said, it's tragedy. For centuries there will be nothing.
The European spruce bark beetle may be tiny, but it has a massive impact on forests. By tunnelling under the bark, it blocks the tree's nutrients and spreads fungi that can kill entire stands of spruce. While spruce is its favourite host, it also attacks pine, fir and larch. In places like the Bavarian Forest and Šumava National Park, bark beetle outbreaks in the 1980s and 90s sparked huge controversies. For centuries, spruce and beetles coexisted. But with climate change and more frequent droughts, weakened trees have become easy prey. The result? Widespread death of old spruce forests, particularly in uniform, monoculture forests. Bark beetle outbreaks have strong economic and social consequences. For example, during Austria's 1990s outbreak, authorities decided to cut entire forests to limit losses for the timber industry. For local communities, the main fears were loss of timber and jobs, risks from falling dead trees, negative effects on tourism. The media often amplified these fears with headlines claiming, "The forest is dying forever."
Would be this devastating image of the forest with dead trees and the dead wood, and it would affect so many trees and large areas on large territory of the national park. And they were afraid of this, basically. So this was something that they still remember very well, because they were regularly visiting the park areas, which is now a park area, which hasn't been before.
But scientists explained a different story. Dead trees provide shelter for rare species, and new mixed forests can regenerate naturally.
The other story would be then to say the bark beetle is part of the national park, and there would not be a problem. Because for the Forest National Park, it is not a problem. It is natural. So the appearance of the bark beetle has always been part of it. And it's not been part of managed forests.
At first, visitors avoided the dead forest. But over time, these wild landscapes became iconic, attracting photographers, eco-tourists, and people curious to see nature's raw power. But how should we respond to bark beetle outbreaks? In the 1990s, the dominant idea was clear-cutting, removing infected trees to stop the spread. After the Iron Curtain fell, managers had little experience with leaving forests unmanaged.
There was this discussion whether you should manage the forest or not, whether the trees had to be cut down or not, because it would be very close to private forests next to to the national park forests. And so private forest owners were afraid that the bark beetle would affect also their own private forests. So this was and is still always a problem.
But activists and scientists pushed back, arguing for natural resilience. In 1999, when a massive clear cut was proposed, protests marked one of the first major environmental movements in the region. Since the 2000s, attitudes have shifted toward let nature be nature. In core zones of national parks, interventions stopped, and spruce forests began to regenerate on their own. A recent Czech study, published in the Journal of Applied Ecology, confirmed that forests can recover without human interference, slowly becoming more diverse, more resilient, and better prepared for future outbreaks.
We are in this protected area, and we want to let nature be nature, as is a German way. How they do it, it's the best way to let it be. Yeah, and because in fact the bark beetle and the environmental conditions together with the bark beetle somewhat select the most healthy trees for reproduction.
What was once a monoculture is evolving into a resilient, mixed forest with a richer ecosystem. So, what's the lesson? Bark beetles aren't a new problem. They've always been part of these ecosystems. Dead trees don't mean a dead forest. In fact, they create opportunities for biodiversity and renewal. And no, German forests are not doomed. Bark beetles may cause destruction at first, but in the long run, they help transform vulnerable spruce monocultures into richer, more resilient forests. From fear and conflict to renewal and resilience, the bark beetle story is as much about people as it is about trees.
So the development of the biodiverse forests that we have now in the national park, it took a long time. So it had to have these catastrophes in a way, so that the monocultivation of the spruce trees, for instance, is given up, basically. So they were allowing other species to grow, so that the bark beetle would not specialize to destroy this one monocultivated tree. So there was this issue that with the diversity, there's also more resilience of the tree, of the forests.